Hello, fourth graders, and happy Friday. We're going to start working today on the last little bit of our writing our story, and we're going to take focus today on crafting and ending. So we're going to look at what's a good way to wrap up our story at the end, and then you're going to work today and early next week on finishing that ending, and you will submit that ending to us on Monday. So we're going to look at crafting and ending today and move forward with our story and get things finished. So our goal is to craft an ending that resolves the story's problem and finishes our character's struggle. So when we say resolves the problem, what we mean is that it wraps up that problem. It kind of provides a resolution, right? So it provides a way the problem is solved in a way that would make sense with what was going on with the character throughout the story. So we're going to take a minute and we're going to try to think about how would that problem really, in a realistic setting, because remember we're writing realistic fiction, how would that problem kind of be wrapped up and solved? We're going to try to put that into an ending of the story that makes sense with everything else we've written up until right now at the very end. So ending a story is the right way. It can be like super challenging, guys, right? That's one of the hardest things for me personally when I write stories, and it's probably one of the hardest things for actual authors when they write a story. So we have to think about how we can solve the character's problem, but at the same time, make things wrap up in the story that the reader's going to enjoy, right? We don't like to write stories or books where the reader's going to be angry at the ending very often, because that may make them not want to read our own work in the future. So we have to think about how do we satisfy the people who are interested in the story, but also how do we teach them kind of a lesson, or how can they learn something from our main character, and how do we end the story in a way that does that. And one of the biggest things that's key to writing the end of a story is trying not to get tired, right? So what happens a lot of the times to writers is they get tired of writing by the end. They've been working and working and working, and then they want to be done with the story, so they try to just write the ending, right? Or have another character. Sometimes it's easy to have another character swoop in and save the day, like maybe a big brother or a parent comes in and they solve the problem for the main character. But what we have to think about when we're writing is that really an ending my readers would want? Would they want somebody to swoop in and save the day, or they want the character who the story is about to solve the problem, or a character the story is about to kind of wrap up in the ending, right? So we don't rush the ending, right? It means just as much, if not more, than the rest of the story. We don't want to just swoop it right at something lazy at the end and wrap it up in an unmeaningful way, right? And not a meaningful way. So I want you to ask yourself these two questions, right? The first question I want you to ask is, what do I want my reader to learn from my story? What do I want them to learn from the main character? And the second question you need to ask is, what is something my character would do that makes sense in the way the story is going to end? Or what is something that would make sense for my character? Is there something hidden we don't know about the character yet that's going to kind of help resolve the story and wrap it up at the end? Or is there something that my character's personality would kind of help them do that makes a difference? Something like that. But you really need to think about those two things. Like what do I want my readers to learn from the story? And what is something my character might do at the end? So I'm going to read to you my final scene. It's a little bit long, but this is the final scene of the story for my character Will, and it's going to end playing at recess with TJ, the new student. So it says, after the rest of the school day went normally, Will was ready for the extra recess his class had earned for their behavior earlier in the week. He was trying to figure out how he would spend the recess, because he knew after his poor performance earlier, he wouldn't be invited back to play basketball. When the class went outside, he noticed the new student TJ throwing a ball against the brick side of the building by himself. What are you doing over here by yourself? Will asked. Playing wall ball, TJ replied. It's a game we played at my old school. If you throw the ball off the wall and the other person doesn't catch it, they're out, and the next person joins the game. Do you want to try it with me? It didn't take very long for Will to figure out he was pretty good at this game. He knew how to use all kinds of crazy spin with the ball because he was a pitcher for his baseball team. Pretty soon, other students had gathered around and were watching how skilled Will was at this new game. They all wanted to challenge him to wall ball, and finally another student asked, "Hey, can we try playing?" Will couldn't help but think about how rude some of the other students had been to him during the basketball game earlier, and he was tempted to tell them no. But being as good as he was at wall ball, he couldn't wait to show them how skilled he was. Will may not have been the best at anything else, but this was his game, and he was unstoppable. Every day at recess, TJ and Will started a game of wall ball, and others would join in. Every once in a while, Will would lose, but most of the time he won. He finally had something that made him feel like he was important. All right, so a couple things about my ending that you may have noticed, right? There were two real lessons that I wanted people to learn from reading my story. The first one is to be forgiving and forget and move on, right? So we see that with Will here at the end of the story. Earlier in the story, he plays basketball. The other kids get mad at him. They kind of make fun of him, and they're kind of mean to him. And then they come back and ask him to play. And here, even though he had been treated poorly by them earlier, he decides to let them play wall ball, right? The second thing is everybody has something they're really good at, and they can share that skill with other people. So even though we see Will struggling a lot with being clumsy or embarrassed earlier in the story, and other kids kind of treating him poorly because of that, we see that he has this shining moment here at the end, right? So Will is able to show them that he is really, really good at something, and that he's able to use that skill to kind of have fun at recess and allow other people to play. If you notice at the end too, it says every once in a while Will would lose, but most of the time he won too. So this means that he's getting to play, and other kids, he's letting them play, and they're becoming better at the game too, and they're beating him at it sometimes. But even though he still is good at this, and everyone kind of celebrates him for it, and it makes him feel important. So I didn't rush the ending. I wrote this scene purposely, right? We kind of have seen a different side of Will throughout the story, but now that he has something else he's good at, he's able to kind of show why that he has this ability to step outside of his comfort zone and be good and play with others. So that's what I want you guys, that's a challenge to you guys as you write the ending of your story, trying to figure out a way that you think your readers are going to enjoy that ending, but also what do you want them to learn from it, and what do you want to teach them? What story, like lesson do you want to teach them from your main character? Kind of creating a theme. We've talked about that a little bit in reading. You can bring that into your own writing. So we're going to look at what your job is here today and early next week. So your job today is working on crafting an ending to your story. And next Monday, you're going to be asked to submit the rough draft of your entire story. So next Friday is when we're going to submit the final published draft of our story. This is my entire story written from beginning to end, with all the scenes we've worked on, with all the dialogue we've worked on, with adding that more descriptive language. All of that's going to be turned in on Friday next week. So you want to use the time today and the time in writing on Monday to make sure your story is completely finished from beginning to end. You have that crafted ending there at the end of your story. We should see that when you submit the rough draft. So on Monday, you are actually going to submit your entire story, including the ending you craft today. And maybe if you needs to do it a little bit more on Monday, you do it a little bit more on Monday. All right. We're super excited, guys, to read these final products where you put your whole entire story together. We've seen a lot of progress as we've done each lesson with what you've turned in. So it's going to be super exciting to see what you guys can come up with and to finish your story and complete your story. So good luck, happy writing, and we will see you early next week, guys. Thank you. Have a great rest of your Friday and weekend.